we've had a very packed agenda and packed speakers, so thank you everyone for keeping to time. We've got a couple of minutes for Q&A before we go for coffee break. I'm going to copy all the other chairs because they got to ask a question, so I feel like I don't want to be left out. So here's my question. So we're talking about AI scribes. I think it's going to be revolutionary in mental health to talk about it. But one of the concerns that people talk about is, what about that skill to summarize a case, to present a case? What is the safety or the risk of using AI tech? So I open it up to our panel as the first question to give you guys time to think about your questions.
It's a wonderful question. Actually, I believe that ChatGPT is not de-skilling people. For those people who don't, who just search, copy and paste, yes, it would de-skill those people. But those who interact with that, ask questions. Why did you come up with this answer? The moment your curiosity is interacting with ChatGPT, you are learning. You're speaking to a super intelligent human being. And imagine that you've got a board of 3 doctors. One is an American consultant, John Hopkins, one from Oxford, one from Imperial College. You make personas, and you put a case up to that and say, look, I'm a doctor working in England. You've got 3 intelligent people. Answer me the questions. You ask and interact. So this is the era of super intelligence. We are lucky to have lived in this era. We are creating super intelligence. So we are those people who interact, not copy and paste, and don't think, yes, they will be de-skilled. But those people who actually interact, they will never be. That's my short answer, but there's a long answer maybe some other time.
Go on, Prof.
I think we've got to, it's the classic thing of law and unintended consequences, that there's so many other things. You say, well, the way rotors have changed, there's so many other things that have changed how we were trained, how we work in practice. And we can't ignore AIs. We do have to use it, but we've got to find the ways that, as I said earlier, is doing things that make the patient's journey better and our job easier rather than more difficult. And there's different ways of doing that, but human connection is always going to be there, and that's the bit we need to foster. And I think even the way we measure how people get into medical school, we need to start thinking about that, because that should be different, because of technology, we're not going to be testing the same things. It's good communicators who can help people navigate technology. And someone said to me, it's basically the best intern you've ever had, AI, but it does need guidance, and we need to learn. That's what we should be teaching, how we use AI to work.
Thank you. That's 2 answers. I'm sure we could carry on that discussion, and we will do over break. I just wanted to give the audience a chance to answer some questions as well. And would you mind introducing yourself and then obviously your question?
Hi, I'm Bachlani. Lovely to meet you all. And Angus, I'll give you some money. It was a really good sales pitch. Sign me up. No, I've got a very serious question, actually. And that's about API and interoperability. Because I'm coming up, I think one of the biggest challenges, when someone says, oh, it has to be interoperable, can we please make it mandatory, like an absolute requirement that any new tech or platform that is trying to enter the NHS system has to produce an API? Because I feel like we're actually moving into an era where clinicians, frontline staff can build their own platforms if they've got amazing tech developers like you guys on the panel and all the amazing things you've shown. But if if they don't have to build that stuff from scratch, they just have the APIs to join up the dots and they can create their own platforms and the way it looks. I feel like that is possible, but only if APIs can easily be shared.
Okay. Interoperability, go on.
I completely agree with you. However, it's not the new entrants coming into the market that need to put their APIs in place, because they absolutely will. It's all the incumbents that are there already. It took us 10 years to get an integration up and running, and that wasn't for lack of asking.
Can I just reinforce that? I think a lot of the companies that have come in early, predominantly from across the pond, have been very inflexible in the way that they have managed their products. If I was in charge, I would boot them out, but I'm not in charge. I do think the NHS has been too risk-averse and has obstructed many innovations because of that. Now, I don't normally congratulate the guy on my left, okay? But this guy in 5 days at the beginning of COVID, set up telemedicine to cover a third of Pakistan with government support. 5 days. He had telemedicine centres across a third of the country, and he had ministerial support for that. It can be done if you actually let it happen. And I think we need to start thinking more about this balance between risk and achievement. Because I'm Scottish, and Scots have been the best inventors in the United Kingdom. Make no mistake about it. But we get held back as inventors because of the regulatory system, and we've got to do something to soften that. Sorry, that is very much my opinion. It's not UKDHC, but...
there's a disclaimer as well.
Suhail and I are UKDHC.
I think Bala as well.
Just one thing to say. I think as of 2017, 2018, during the days of NHS, the NHS has deployed an interoperability standard, very much in alliance with the International Health Exchange standards. So it is adhered. It was largely addressed to, as it was mentioned, some of the companies, largely secondary care companies, didn't adhere to that, but post that, it is a mandated requirement. DTAC, one of the requirements of DTAC is interoperability along with clinical safety and cybersecurity. The issue is about having that open standards being acceptable so that you're not running pillar to post to make sure your exchange of data is limited on who you're connecting with. A number of connectathons and hackathons have been held across the NHS with various bodies in order for them to prove that they are connectable. So I think that horse is sort of still very much alive.
Thank you. I'm going to take one more question. And as I'm somebody who sits at the back, I'm going to be biased. Can we choose somebody from the back, if that's okay? And I love Professor Angus's point. I was speaking to a fellow CCIO, and she said innovation in the NHS is near impossible. It's a bit pessimistic, isn't it? But anyway, maybe that's true. Please say who you are.
I can. My name is John O'Broad. I have the privilege of both working within the NHS but also being a long-term conditions patient. So my question is, who should own and hold the electronic patient record?
Good question. That's a brilliant
easy.
question.
That's easy. The patient.
Yeah.
It's their record. And I have been to so many meetings like this where people stand up and say, that patient record belongs to us. It doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the patient, and the patient has to share it with you. And I think there is a dreadful attitude, unfortunately, amongst some of the more technically orientated people, that record belongs to them. That, again, is a personal view.
Nothing the NHS did.
Another disclaimer if you hadn't noticed, yeah?
So the NHS data policy very clearly states that the NHS are custodians of patients' data. The data belongs to the patients. Having deployed so many EPR systems in the healthcare system and navigated very many suppliers, it's very clear. So hence we try and make sure that the vendors do not lock the data, and we're not paying a huge price for extracting the data when we move from one vendor to the other. So having a vendor-neutral archive is very important.
There is a problem of digital equity. If you give access to patients, some patients are not tech savvy, and they will need help to get access to their records. So it has to be that simple, just like color codes. Your acute records, red. Your chronic records, green. Inactive records, blue. I'm working on such a system which is color coded for the patients. They don't have to even read. They can access to the records, and then it is connected to a telehealth system to get the doctor of the choice, give them access temporarily in that window, and stop the access. And that is the real democratization of telehealth technology. So I totally support that view, Professor.
And last point to Andrew.
Go on. We usually have these conferences, everyone agrees, so I'm going to just slightly disagree, and perhaps on the more technical side. I think there's also legal aspects of which I am not an expert, but the concept of owning data is a bit moot in law. I think it's a question more of not who owns it, but what's being used with it and who has control over that data and who is able to share it on what basis. It, to some extent, doesn't matter about who owns it. And is it the patient's data? You know, I'm more inclined to say no, it's about the patient, but I think it's a more shared data between the NHS and the patient, and that's where that social compact comes into play.
Okay, so that's nice to have a bit of differing opinions. Just to give you a mental health example, I don't think I do my job as a psychiatrist very well. There's an app called Beth, which is done by the Maudsley, and patients have a select view into their records. They can also complete their outcome measures. You're obviously an opt-in model. So I think absolutely, my opinion would be it's the patient's information that we're inputting into. I'm going to stop there, otherwise I'm going to be told off for being a rubbish chair. You've got about 10 minutes for coffee and then on to session 3. Can we just thank all the speakers, please?